Hey, I'm going to show you how to install an auxiliary input into your car so that you can play music from an MP3 player or a smartphone. This was done on a 2004 GMC Yukon, but it should be able to be done on any similar vehicle, assuming it has XM radio capabilities. So to get started, I'll go over all the parts we're going to need for this. Most importantly, you're going to need a 3.5 millimeter jack to plug your MP3 player into. This was purchased at Radio Shack. You should be able to find them online anywhere pretty easily. The way this guy works is you have your input for the MP3 player. You have a ground pin coming off, you could say, the bottom, and then you have two signal pins coming off the back. Signal 1 and signal 2 are just left and right speaker. So in your XM module, you're going to have two wires that control the left and right speakers, and you need to tap into those and attach the signal 1 and signal 2 to the left and right. So I'm going to start off by soldering a wire onto each signal pin. Then I'll solder a wire onto the ground pin. To finish that up, I'm going to paint on some of this nifty liquid electrical tape. Covers up all the solder joints and dries in about 5 to 10 minutes. One thing to keep in mind when soldering your wires on is make sure you have enough length to reach where you want it to. I had a lot of extra length and I just cut it off, but I didn't have to add any more wire. Now that we've created the plug, it's time to get into the vehicle. Go ahead and open up your glove box and pull this tab aside to lower it to expose the XM module. Here are the wires that you need to be dealing with. Behind this plug is a little blue lock. You need to remove this locking mechanism to be able to pull the plug out. Once the blue locking mechanism is removed, you can just squeeze the tab on the back side of the plug and pull it straight out. We'll get right back to this plug in about a minute, but first we want to install our plug so we know how much length we need on wire. Go ahead and pick a spot and drill into it. Make sure you don't drill too far in case there's anything behind. Test the plug to make sure it fits. I ended up taking off the dashboard trim and pulling the panel off. You can see in the back there's kind of a honeycomb support design that needs to be taken out. I used a small Dremel to Dremel around and shave down the back a little bit so that the threads on my auxiliary module would fit all the way through. Once you complete that, feed the wires back through the back of the dashboard and reinstall the panel. Measure your length and make sure you have plenty of length to reach the plug, and go ahead and cut off the excess wire that you soldered on originally. Hopefully the wires coming out of your plug should look something like this configuration. Here's a basic schematic on how the wiring should be done. The pink section is the wire coming out of the XM module before the splice. The yellow highlighted wire goes to your stereo system. Splicing the wires and keeping the whole circuit intact will allow you to simultaneously use XM as well as auxiliary input. When on low volumes, the XM signal will bleed through and you'll be able to hear it in the background slightly. If you leave the pink section disconnected and only solder straight onto the yellow section, you're disabling the XM signal. However, you're not going to have any XM signal bleeding into your MP3 signal. So go ahead and solder these connections. Just to recap, one signal wire from your input should go to the green with white stripe wire on the XM plug. The other signal wire from your input should go to the brown with white stripe wire on the XM plug. Your ground wire from your input should go to the black with white stripe wire. There are two black wires with white stripes on them. Use the outermost one as specified in the previous schematic. It should look something like this when finished. One thing I did along the way was I used alligator clips to connect all my connections before I soldered anything. You can see in the background of this clip the alligator clips hanging out, and before I soldered I just clipped all the wires together and tested it to see if it worked. At this point you should be able to close up your glove box, plug your auxiliary port in, navigate to the XM1 channel on your radio, and play some music on your smartphone. Let me know if you have any questions.